Hello, welcome everybody to this week's Social Cafe event. And tonight we are talking about continuous process improvement. That's a mouthful. Hi Con, hi Gail.
Hi.
So what did we learn tonight from everybody's input? Do you want to take that, Con?
Sure. Well, it sounds like most people think that using some sort of a tool or method to review their numbers, to review their goals and objectives starting from their baseline is a good idea. I think some folks go down to a more tactical level than others may do. Unfortunately, we didn't have an opportunity to talk about different types of tools and techniques. Like at one extreme, you have Six Sigma. At the other end, you got somebody who's just working with a spreadsheet and probably doing just as good a job. But everybody seems to recognize the need for something to be done.
Well, that's good. I mean, that's the first thing is to, define the problem and recognize the need. Do you want to tell us a little bit about Six Sigma for people that are not familiar?
Sure. Six Sigma was an idea that came out, probably in the 80s and got picked up by some of the large American manufacturing companies and was taken overseas. Essentially what it was a series of tools to review metrics and try to get down to zero defects. They have a tool called, they have a model which they call their SIPOC, S-I-P-O-C model, which goes for supplier, inputs, process, outputs, and control. And essentially what you're doing is you're using statistical tools to look for exceptions and work that down to zero. I'm not a great statistician, but somewhere in when you do regression analysis, Six Sigma is a good thing. It became very popular with Jack Welch and General Electric in the 90s. They're still using it, although when he retired about 15 years ago, they kind of got off it a little. Other companies have picked it up. Johnson & Johnson was a big fan of it for a while. And really what it was all about was in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, a lot of the consulting firms were making a ton of money by coming in and doing all this statistical analysis. It became very expensive to do. So what the companies tried to do was dumb it down so they could teach everybody. And some folks came up with this idea of green belts, black belts, where it was a way of measuring, how much you had learned, what had you done with the tools. So it was very popular for a while with large American companies. Still out there, but it's a good tool. It's a good toolkit. You can take a lot of things out of it and use it for very specific purposes. Where I think it fails is people become very cultish about it and they try to use it for everything. Like I ran into people who thought that Six Sigma was a project management tool, which it wasn't. And let's just say they had some very interesting results when they tried to do it. But if you go in and use the tools for a specific problem, whether it's on a manufacturing line, whether you have a problem with your project management methodology or system development lifecycle, you can do a lot of good work. But it's like anything else. A tool has to be used for the problem it was originally designed for. Otherwise, you're going to go after a lot of flies with sledgehammers.
That makes a lot of sense. I like how you described that as far as the defect measurement. If we step back and talk about the phrase process improvement, really we're just saying rather than developing, okay, this is what we're going to do in social media strategy, putting it in place and then never changing it and just assuming it's going to work for the next 50 years. I mean, who knows what the internet's going to be in 50 years. Process improvement, simply put, is looking at what you're doing and seeing if there's any area for improvement in the process that you're using. Is that a fair?
That's fair. Pretty spot on.
Thanks. And Gail, can you think of any tools that would be similar to what Con described on a social media strategy level?
Well, when I was at IBM, I actually ran the Six Sigma program for our region. Yeah, but we did it a little bit different. They were calling it Lean Six Sigma, and the point was to drive operational innovations. So we would have a team, and we would come up with a process we thought could be improved, and then we would come up with a strategy for how we thought that process should be done, and they measured the beginning and at the end, and then we presented to executives who decided whether we were going to implement it or not. And so that might be a little bit like the project management he was talking about, because we kind of did do a project out of it. But basically, to get innovation or to get improvement, the only thing that's required is you have to measure something. And so you could start out benchmarking all of your social networks, how much interaction you're getting, how many, what you're doing. The main thing is if you have to document it. If you actually want to get serious about this stuff, you need to document how many times or what exactly you're doing. Test that for a while, see what kind of interactions and click-throughs and conversions you get based on what you're doing, and then change it and see if things get better or worse. And so if they get better, you keep it, and if they get worse, you go back to what you were doing. And so you keep making changes. But the main thing I want to stress is if you're going to get serious about anything like that you must only change one thing at a time. If you change a bunch of things, then it's just going to be a pure guess which one actually made a difference. Olivier Blanchard, the brand builder, that's his Twitter handle, @thebrandbuilder. He actually wrote some good stuff about measuring social media ROI early on that I liked, because he's the only one I saw that specified that you have to measure the time frame. Like you have to document when did you make the change, measure it a certain amount of time, did that cause an improvement or not.
Now wait, for time frame. Sorry to cut you off on there, but because there's
time frame, meaning that you can tell whether what you're doing is making a difference if you track when you implemented it, how long you're running it, right? So everybody just keeps doing stuff, and they have no idea if it's having any impact on their business. But let me give you an example that'll clarify this. Say that your sales are fairly static. They've been measured a long time, and you know how much you're selling. Then you go and run a big campaign of any kind, advertising or social media. And during the time you ran that campaign, actually a little bit staggered, it's usually about a week later, 7 to 10 days later, you'll see a significant difference in sales. There's a delay. I saw this in AdWords, that there's a delay even for inexpensive products you would think were impulse purchases. There's still about a 7 to 10 days delay between the time you start the ads and you start seeing consistent sales from that. And so you would say, okay, this is our benchmark. This is what we're selling today. We're going to do this campaign. We're going to get active on Facebook, or we're going to run ads on Twitter or LinkedIn or wherever. Run that campaign and see during the time you're running that campaign and the next few weeks after it stops, if you stop it, what happened to sales. If sales had always been steady during that month, it's good to have like more than 1 year to look back on, because businesses tend to be seasonal to some extent. So if you know that March is always a weak month, you run a campaign, and this is the best month of March you'd ever had, even though you can directly attribute specifically what you did and track it to the conversion, you could be fairly certain that what you did must have affected sales.
Yep. Then your baseline is whatever. I mean, for example, the retail season, as far as around the holidays, your baseline is that, hey, maybe that's the best time of the year for your sales. You have at least a general baseline.
Right. It's good to know. Like, people don't realize on the internet there are actually seasons on the internet. In different industries, there are times of year when things are busy. Like I can tell you that people search more from Halloween to Thanksgiving. Searches and traffic will go up, but sales often barely change. But then, the few weeks before Christmas, when you can still ship cheap, then searches and traffic actually go down, but sales go way up. And so you need to know about these trends. Or say that you're in the wedding industry. You should know that the first and second quarter are high search times, and the second and third quarter are high sales times. And so you can actually go back. I used to do that. I had a big gift client, and I would I would compare their sales last year and this year, and then I would say, I would go to them and I'd say, last year around the middle of February, you had a big uplift in sales. Do you know why that is? And they would usually say no. And then I would go and dig into the data and see what it was they were selling. why is it you suddenly got a lot of sales the middle of February? And then I could figure out what people were buying, and then I would run ads for those items just ahead of when that lift usually came. It's like if you're in the wedding industry, you should be pushing really hard right now.
Yep.
Because your big sales time is next quarter. All right. Your big search time is this past quarter. And so you should be visible during the big search time so that you get the sale during the big sales time.
Do you say you should be invisible?
What?
You should be invisible or visible during the research? You want people to research.
Yeah, you want to be very visible. You need to know when the trends are. You also need to know, like, I'll give you a great example. Some people have tried to launch Kickstarters or contests during the holidays. Terrible idea. Never, ever do that. It's just, it'll never fly. People are super busy doing their shopping, worried about the end of the year, getting their books in order. Never run a contest in November or December. It will never fly. I don't care how awesome it is. Now, if it's something they might want to give as a gift, like you're giving away, you can give away iPads anytime and that will fly. All right, but in general, don't launch stuff when people are super busy. So social media is the same way. You need to know when did you start doing something different, and then look and see during that period of time, like pick a time you're going to run stuff. Maybe it's 3 weeks, maybe it's a month. Say, I'm going to start this on X day, I'm going to run it 30 days, and at the end of 30 days I'm going to examine what's happened. And if it looks like it's getting better, I'm going to keep doing it. But if it looks like it's not doing me any good, I'm going to stop doing it.
Makes a lot of sense. Now, what would be a way to do this that doesn't, I mean, people are probably listening to this going, great, I want to do it, and maybe they'll run out and go do it, tomorrow and do it for 3 weeks, maybe even a month, but how can we, keep this simple? I mean, is this an Excel spreadsheet, Google Sheet, something where people don't feel overwhelmed doing the process? Con, do you have thoughts?
Man, the kinds of clients I deal with, small, mid-sized businesses, keeping it simple I think is important. The Six Sigma and the Lean Six Sigma that was developed from it that Gail mentioned, if you're Johnson & Johnson, if you're General Motors, those are wonderful tools. Knock yourselves out. They had whole armies of people dedicated to it. If you're a small firm, it's really, what are the key variables that affect your sales? What are the key variables that will affect an expense? What are the key variables that may affect customer satisfaction, affect traffic coming into a store? Starting simple, there's always Six Sigma for Dummies, which is a great book. I'm never ashamed to admit that I read them. You can take out the couple of tools that you need to look at those numbers and work on it, because, as Gail said, Six Sigma is a lot of documentation if you take something like that, and it's really overkill for a lot of companies.
Now, is that something that's going to cost people money beyond the book?
Not if they do it right. You could always go out and find consultants to help you here, but for your typical small, mid-sized business person who really understands the dynamics of their business, if they're willing to take the time, and I know that's probably the part of to get them the money, to sit down and think about, what are those components that make up their baseline, and as Gail said before, don't change everything at once. I've seen people do that, and you can't figure anything out. Take one variable, change it, measure it for a period of time. As Gail pointed out, do it at the right time of the year. If you're in retail, you don't do a lot of this stuff around the holidays. Do it when you get into the new year, first or second quarter. But focus on that, and you'll find that things you're going to get different results, and hopefully they're going to improve.
And I think people need to realize the different variables. In other words, for example, the holiday season, that is a variable. So if you want to keep things only changing one item, realize that if you're doing that, you're already changing an item if you do it at the holiday, because that is one variable. Definitely have to have patience so that you're not tempted to change more about variables. But another one in social media is, for example, time of day for your promotions. Unless you want to blast out a tweet every 15 minutes or something, you need to be aware of when your audience is actually paying attention, for example, to your Twitter account. That's something that's very important, not as much in the retail offline, but it is important on the time of day as far as social media marketing.
But the other thing that I've noticed with social media since I began is understanding who your audience is And I seem to have picked up a lot of people outside the 3 mile limit. I'm not too sure why. Maybe it's because I used to wander around the world a lot. But if you take a very American-centric approach and you just worry about 9 to 5, East Coast to West Coast, you could miss a lot of opportunities, especially if you're doing a lot of online work.
Definitely, definitely, good point. And even in, yeah, this is sort of off topic, but I was thinking, in terms of even your writing, I still put some colloquialisms in my writing, but I make sure that I define them because I can't assume that people know what I'm saying. In fact, my daughter showed me a test that you could take to figure out like what part of the U.S. you're from based on different terms for things. I'll spare you guys all the details, but it was kind of a fun little quiz to take. But it really made me realize that even within one country, there can be different phrases. Like, for example, in Minnesota, they call the carbonated beverage pop. In California, we call it soda.
We do here too.
Yeah, there's more regional differences than most people realize, and you'll figure that out if you start doing editing, because people will say the one that I always like to use is to standing in line or online, and I always tease them and tell them, the only way you can stand online is if you paint a line on the pavement.
That makes sense. I think we were talking about that. Yeah,
That's a Northeast thing, I think.
Isn't that your area, Con?
Yeah, we always stand online.
Really?
Although I used to live in Britain, so sometimes I queue up.
Yeah, you can queue up at the airport, but we don't queue up most places.
Okay, I was like, what is queue up?
Queue up, it's to stand in one of those things like at the airport with the divider thing, like at Disneyland. A queue is that.
Yeah, just a queue, just an ordinary line, whether it's Disney World, check out, register. The
like it,
queue up.
Wendy's
about it too.
Yeah, they have the bar, that divides the people. I would like to say something about using social media measurement tools.
Go for it.
All right, I know that a lot of people probably haven't noticed this. There are a lot of tools that will tell you when your best time to share is. I would like them to be aware that that is usually based on what you're doing. So if you always share 8 to 5 your local time, then that tool will never tell you anything but sometime within the 8 to 5 local time you always share. You follow what I'm saying?
Yep. So what's your recommendation for process improvement? To go out and, for like, say, a week, share 24 hours, like maybe once an hour, and then let it tell you?
Well, the other thing is that if you tend to share your best stuff 8 to 5 Monday through Friday, you tend to grow an audience that is online 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. And so I just want to point out that people shouldn't get too freaked out about that whole concept, because your best time depends on a lot of variables, including when you happen to be active online.
That makes sense. Now, should people, for example, blog article, should you share it at maybe 8 o'clock your time and then maybe even 8 p.m. your time? Should you share it, well, you should be sharing it more than once anyway.
Right. Well, my philosophy on publishing blog posts is a little different than most people. 2 things, the time and the day. Everyone likes to publish Mondays. Personally, I like to publish really short or nothing on Monday. Because you come in on Monday, you're overwhelmed. Everybody's published over the weekend. Things are piled up. Do you really want to read my brilliant post that's really long on Monday? I don't think so. So my philosophy is the best post should be published on Wednesday, followed by Tuesday and Thursday. Sunday night is a great time because all kinds of people are on Sunday night. The kind of people that are getting ready for workday tomorrow, and the kind of people that are unwinding from the weekday or the weekend. Sunday night, I think, is really strong as Wednesday, and a good time to, let's say you can't decide whether the target audience for what you're writing about is business people that work 9 to 5 or freelancers who are online Sunday night, or moms or work-at-home moms or whatever. If you're not sure, I would publish that Sunday night if it's really important. Monday is acceptable, but like I said, they'll probably click on it, but they probably won't spend much time on it. Friday afternoon to Saturday, all day long to Sunday morning, very dead on the internet, except Pinterest. Pinterest is super hot Saturday, really early mornings. I assume because people with small children children woke them up watching cartoons. That's all I can come up with. But Pinterest is the one exception. So that's what I would say about days. As far as times go, my philosophy is I like to publish around 10 to 11 a.m. Central Time, with the theory that I can catch the East Coast right before they leave for lunch or right when they come back, and the West Coast as they're coming in the morning, and everybody in between.
That's interesting. Hey, Con, what do you think of that timing? Oops,
Yeah,
I think
Sorry. I think it's good. What I've been doing is been posting on my blog about 8 o'clock on Sunday morning, getting a small amount of traffic there. So I think I'm going to try some tweaks based on what Gail said.
yeah, I think what you shared, Gail, is very similar to what I do too. I haven't been doing Monday because I'm overwhelmed Monday thinking of everything I have to do for the week. So I'm not reading the posts either, no matter how good they are.
Yeah, so everybody else is doing it, and all the posts that came in over the weekend and all the posts on Monday all piled up. Nobody's going to have time to read those and pay attention. And then we have to remember that we have several choices. We can use something like Hootsuite, Octopost, or Mass Social to schedule that content. And I really feel like if you spend time writing a brilliant piece of content and only tweet it once, you're really missing the boat. You can tweet that post 8 hours apart, 3 times, or once a day, or once a week, or Monday this week, Tuesday the week after, Wednesday the week after, doesn't matter. You can use these tools to schedule that kind of thing. You can just pay attention, share them, like I shared some content tonight. It wasn't mine, it was other people's that I've saved relevant to our topic tonight. You can share those during a Twitter chat. And so you can use those kind of tools to reshare your best content. And then I use Trend Demon on my blog because it automatically suggests my most popular content. So when you're reading one thing, it's saying, oh, you might also like these other posts that are the most popular this week. And so I feel like we have a lot of alternatives. We also can use Viral Content Buzz, and we can use Just Retweet to get other people to share. And so if you write posts that you really like, you should be promoting at least some of those posts using these other tools. Viral Content Buzz, Just Retweet, both free to use if you share other people's content and earn the credits to use to share your own. And so I love those two tools. I use them all the time. And then get something to schedule your posts, or manually do it if you don't want to. If you can't afford a tool, you can manually do it. You can use Trello and make a schedule, and then just get in the habit of doing it.
Yep, and if you're an Excel junkie, I don't know if it's in the free one, but on the Hootsuite, you can load up your Excel with the tweets and then upload it into Hootsuite. Once you have the template, and they actually provide that, you can upload it and keep using that same, if you have a bunch of quotes, you can upload that in Hootsuite and automatically have it tweet.
It's not on the free version.
It's not? Okay, good to know. All right, if you have the paid version, that's an option. Also, Social Oomph is another one, but that is a free version, but they have reservoirs, which means you can dump a tweet that you want to send out several times. You can dump it into a reservoir, say tweet it every 4th day, and Social Oomph will do that for you.
Right, yeah, that's handy. I can't wait for Mass Social is supposed to get some new scheduling tools to let us schedule more times out in the future without having to manually recreate them.
And so Mass Social is a great interface for that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. It should come out soon, I think.
Another one that's coming out is SMQ. Came out with some new that can compete with Social Oomph, because a lot of places you can't, Buffer app, Hootsuite, you can't put the same tweet in twice. You have to wait for it to actually tweet before you add it. I know I'm talking a lot about Twitter, but SMQ, Social Oomph, or a couple others that you can do the same type of thing.
Can you schedule stuff? If you want to really get serious about Facebook, you can get Agorapulse, which is not free. I don't think they have a free version except maybe a trial version. But if you're serious about Facebook, I hear that Agorapulse is the easiest one to learn and the most powerful. And so that's the problem with this. If you want to get serious about Pinterest, you need a Pinterest tool. And, but a lot of the tools work for Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. But then Pinterest is kind of an outlier most of the time.
But guess what? And by the way, guys, we didn't plan this. We just started talking about tools all over the place. And you can tune in. This is kind of self-promotional, but you can tune in tomorrow night, Wednesday night, and we cover tools every Wednesday at the same time as what we're doing tonight. In other words, like 6 p.m. Pacific time, 9 p.m. Eastern time at Web Tools TV. But we have a tools series coming up, and we actually have 2 tools for scheduling pins for Pinterest, 2 different companies, Viral Tag and Board Booster. So you'll get to actually hear the CEOs, the founders, talk about those tools. So if you love Pinterest, you'll want to pay attention to the next series that we do in Social Cafe, because we're covering those too.
Yeah, I think everyone has to be, if you're going to be serious, you really need tools. It's time. We have to break down and get some tools.
Yep. And we still have free ones out there, right, Con?
There's still some.
Yep, and there's a lot of them that have a free plan and a paid plan, so you can go load up on all the free ones and then decide if you want to spend money, which ones you want to upgrade.
Yeah, some of them are. Hootsuite is pretty generous for its free version, and I am considering getting the monthly plan. Feedly, Evernote are tools I use, and I'm looking at their paid versions as well, because you get a lot of value for the money.
Yep, yep.
Yeah,
Well,
I want to say that Hootsuite's kind of hard to learn. And so if I had the money to spend, I would definitely compare Octopost and MavSocial and SocialOomph and Hootsuite, and then decide. There's also some great comparison posts out there.
Good point. Good, and some slide shares too.
Yeah, because the training for learning Hootsuite is like what, 50-something hours?
I didn't go through the training, but then again, I taught myself before all the training existed.
I didn't do it either, but I set one up, and then somebody that had been through the training looked at it and said, oh, no, that's not how you're supposed to do it. And so if you're going to use it, you need to take the training probably, and it's kind of extensive, and I think you should probably think of these other tools first, or at least compare them all.
And there you go. Tune in for Social Cafe the next 10 weeks after our summary next week, and you'll learn about at least 10 tools. And we'll have a couple of those series. I think we're planning on doing that twice this year, so you'll learn about some tools. Con?
That's good. Look forward to it.
Excellent. Well, thanks, guys, for tuning in and watching. And join us same time next week on another Social Cafe event. And next week, we're doing our wrap-up summary. So, thanks, Gail. Thanks, Con.
Yeah, take care, everybody.